Bonjour, I'm Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France, and this is going to be a lesson on the recent past, le passé récent, and that's using the verb venir followed by de and an infinitive. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I already know how to do that. That's great, but hold on, stick with me because I'm going to show you something else you can do with this simple little construction that might just be new to you. Now, what do I mean by the recent past? What kind of tense are you going to have to use in order to do this? Well, guess what? All you have to do is use the verb venir in the present tense, followed by an infinitive, by de and an infinitive. And all of a sudden, it's going to mean that you have just done something or that someone has just done something. Now, it is important for you to know how to conjugate the verb venir in the present tense. And this is an irregular verb, so write it down. If you are taking my course, you have your lesson guide. I hope you have it out so that you can take notes. Let's go through this present tense conjugation. And why don't you just repeat after me? Je viens, je viens, tu viens, tu viens, il vient, il vient. And of course, that goes for elle and on as well. Nous venons, nous venons. Vous venez, vous venez. Ils viennent, ils viennent. Make sure you pronounce that last one with that hard N sound, viennent. Let's jump right into some examples. I think that's the best way to do this. The first one is going to be Mes amis viennent juste de partir. Mes amis viennent juste de partir. I can leave juste out. Mes amis viennent de partir. Mes amis viennent de partir. And these both mean my friends just left. So someone in one of my French challenges asked me, why do we have to add juste? Isn't that a bit redundant if it already means my friends just left? The answer is yes. It is redundant. But listen. If I said mes amis viennent de partir, in English I would say my friends just left. If I said mes amis viennent juste de partir, in English I might say it like this: my friends just left. My friends just left. My friends just left. You see that emphasis? And we do that thing in English where we can go all over the place with our voice. But you know, in French, or maybe you didn't know, I'm telling you, in French, it's not as sing-songy. So we tend to add in extra little words for emphasis. And that is why you will see juste in parentheses in all of my examples. Tu viens juste de m'appeler? Tu viens juste de m'appeler? Did you just call me? Tu viens juste de m'appeler? See, we don't have to do any kind of passé composé or anything like that, just the present tense of the verb venir. Christine vient juste d'apprendre les bonnes nouvelles. Christine vient juste d'apprendre les bonnes nouvelles. That means Christine just learned the good news. We might say in English, Christine just got the good news. But in French, you know, you can't use that word got as liberally as we do in English. You're going to have to go back to which infinitive do I really mean when I say got? And here it means apprendre, to learn. Vous venez de rater le train. Vous venez de rater le train. Or, vous venez juste de rater le train. Vous venez juste de rater le train. Remember, you just missed the train. Or, you just missed the train. That's that extra juste that we can throw in for emphasis. Je viens de voir mon professeur dans la rue. Je viens de voir mon professeur dans la rue. I just saw my teacher in the street. Je viens juste de voir mon professeur dans la rue. I just saw my teacher in the street. So you don't have to use juste all the time. Sometimes you don't need extra emphasis. You just want to say, oh, I just saw my teacher in the street. Big whoop, you know? But je viens juste de voir. You get that emphasis in there. Now, in this one, watch how I pronounce the verb. You want to make sure you get that hard N sound in there when it's plural. Plural, third person. Les filles viennent de commencer à faire le gâteau. Les filles viennent juste de commencer à faire le gâteau. The girls just started making the cake. Commencer à faire, this is a reminder that commencer is followed by à when it has an infinitive after it. Don't forget that. It's going to be very important later on in French. Nous venons juste de terminer nos devoirs. Nous venons de terminer nos devoirs. They both mean we just finished our homework. Sometimes people ask me, why terminer? Why terminer? Why couldn't I use finir? You can use finir if you want to. They mean the same thing. Nous venons juste de finir nos devoirs. C'est parfait. All right, here we go. So I promised at the beginning, if you already know how to use venir de followed by an infinitive to say that something just happened, that's fine. But I told you I would tell you something that you might not know. And that's using the verb venir in the imperfect tense. Still followed by de and an infinitive, but now instead of saying that I have just done something or someone has just done something or something has just happened, look at that word, had. The has changes to had. So now we're going to say that I had just done something, something had just happened. So now we're moving back in time a little bit. Something happened before something else happened. Now, this is a little reminiscent of a tense, if you're a little advanced, that you may have heard of called le plus que parfait. Because we use the plus que parfait when we want to say, I had eaten a sandwich, for example. That's true. But here's what you can do with the verb venir in the imperfect followed by de and an infinitive. I'm going to show you some examples, but first let's go ahead and go through the imperfect conjugation of the verb venir. Now, you might say, all right, I'm going to stop it here because I don't know how to conjugate. Oh, my watch is talking to me. Sorry. You might say, I don't know how to conjugate in the imperfect. I don't know how to use it. I don't know what it's for. Who cares? Doesn't even matter. Just learn how to spell them. Learn how to say them. It's just one verb. You don't even have to know how to use the imperfect, okay? So repeat after me. Je venais. Je venais. Tu venais. Tu venais. Il venait. Il venait. Of course, that's the same for elle and on. Nous venions. Nous venions. Vous veniez. Vous veniez. Il venait. Il venait. So for the nous and vous form, you want to make sure you get that I sound in there. It's not there for nothing. Nous venions. Vous veniez. And then I've been really going at you for the third person in the present tense to get that hard N sound in. Remember in the present tense, ils viennent. Not here. It's spelled differently. You don't have two N's. It's just a different setup. So we just say il venait. And it sounds exactly like the singular, il venait. Tu venais juste de sortir lorsqu'il s'est mis à pleuvoir. Tu venais juste de sortir lorsqu'il s'est mis à pleuvoir. You had just left when it started to rain. Now, here's where we have to pay attention because it started to rain, right? At some point in the past, it started to rain. That's why we have the passé composé up there. But you left right before the rain started, didn't you? So that's why we have to shift and use this construction where we put venir in the imperfect. D'accord? Now, you might say, if you're taking my course, you might say, Jennifer, Number one, we have not done the imperfect yet. Number two, we haven't even done reflexive verbs yet. What's going on? Let's change it up a little bit if this is a bit too much for you. Look at the sentence at the top. I could have replaced il s'est mis à with the simple verb commencer à. We need the à for both of them, which is very convenient. So I could have said, tu venais juste de sortir lorsqu'il a commencé à pleuvoir. Right? You can do that, and it sounds just as good. What about lorsque? You might be saying, I know I've seen it. I know I've seen it, but what is that? Lorsque is a word that you can use to replace quand. It just means when, and guess what? They're interchangeable. And lorsque just sounds a little more, it's just a little fancier. Okay? So I could have said, to make this super simple, tu venais de sortir quand il a commencé à pleuvoir. And I just can't stop myself. I have to tell you, if I changed lorsque to quand, now all of a sudden I have the word quand, Q-U-A-N-D, and quand is followed by il. Did you hear the way I pronounced that? I said quand-il. Now why in the world? Because it makes French sound prettier. So when we have a de followed by that vowel, we're going to make it not like an ah with an accent on it, okay? But a word that begins with a vowel. We're going to make it sound like a T. Make it sound pretty. Nous venions juste de terminer le dessert lorsque les voisins ont sonné à la porte. Nous venions juste de terminer le dessert lorsque les voisins ont sonné à la porte. We had just finished dessert when the neighbors rang the bell. Just a few things here. Yes, I can replace terminer with finir and nothing else changes. I can replace lorsque with quand and nothing else changes. That would be nous venions juste de finir le dessert quand les voisins ont sonné à la porte. Now, I'm not going to say quand les voisins because les voisins doesn't begin with a vowel, not like in the last example. D'accord? Okay, so this is something that happened right before something else happened. Le musée venait juste de fermer quand je suis arrivée pour voir les tableaux. Le musée venait juste de fermer quand je suis arrivée pour voir les tableaux. So I arrived to see the paintings, but right before I got there, the museum had just closed. Shoot. Okay. Le musée venait juste de fermer lorsque je suis arrivée pour voir les tableaux. Yeah, you can do that. Je venais juste de m'endormir quand le téléphone a sonné. Je venais juste de m'endormir quand le téléphone a sonné. I'm going to insist on a few things so we can get this in our brains, because someone, again, in the challenge was like having a hard time wrapping my head around this, when things happened. Well, look, the phone rang, but just before the phone rang, I had just fallen asleep. So there you go. Je venais juste de m'endormir. The verb m'endormir, actually the infinitive is s'endormir. So that's a reflexive verb that we'll get to a little bit later in the course. But it says m'endormir and not s'endormir. Well, that's just because we have to put an M in front of endormir to make it agree with je. That's how the reflexive pronouns work. You can replace quand with lorsque if you feel like it. Les élèves venaient juste de s'asseoir quand le professeur est entré dans la classe. Les élèves venaient juste de s'asseoir quand le professeur est entré dans la classe. Good. That means the students had just sat down when the teacher entered the classroom. Here again, we have after the venir de construction, we have an infinitive, which happens to be a reflexive verb. It's the verb s'asseoir, means to sit down. Now here we keep the S, just like it looks in the infinitive form, because the reflexive pronoun for les élèves, that plural, that third person plural, is se. Okay, so it can stay there. And you can replace quand with lorsque. Oh, one more thing before I go on. Est entré dans la classe. You can't forget the dans, because in English we say entered the classroom, right? But in French, he entered in the class or in the classroom. That's going to be important when we get to pronouns very soon in the course. Est-ce que vous veniez juste d'aller faire les courses quand je suis arrivée? Est-ce que vous veniez juste d'aller faire les courses quand je suis arrivée? So here I'm asking the question. You can leave est-ce que off if you want and just say vous veniez juste d'aller faire les courses quand je suis arrivée. And this means, had you just gone grocery shopping when I arrived? So now I've done something you might be like, whoa, something's different. I don't like it. She put the word had at the beginning. Well, there's more than one way to ask a question in English as well, isn't there? I could have just said, you had just gone grocery shopping when I arrived, and that would be fine. But I wanted to show you this, putting the word had at the beginning in English, because sometimes our brains, we get formatted and we're like, that's what it said. That's what she said in the lesson. That's what it says on my lesson guide. But yeah, there's more than one way of asking a question. So there you have it. That's our lesson on venir de, followed by an infinitive, the recent past. Look, worst case scenario, you have to learn a few conjugations. You have to learn how to conjugate the irregular verb venir in the present tense, and you have to learn how to conjugate it in the imperfect tense. The third thing, you have to wrap your head around, when are things actually happening here? Is it something that really just happened, or is it something that happened just before something else happened? Those are the main takeaways. If you're in the course doing this, you're going to have a quiz to take, so I want to make sure that you have your lesson guide out, and I hope that you've taken some notes. And if you're not watching this in my course, then maybe that's something you need to check out. I would love to have you join me in my French course for self-learners. And if you're interested in doing that, then just check out the link in the description below. Ciao for now. C'est tout. À très bientôt.